Before the season even kicks off, soccer fans are already making predictions. Who wins the league? Who qualifies for Europe? And who's lifting the trophy at season's end? On Kalshi, America's #1 prediction market platform, you're trading against peers in a live market, meaning there's no house. And as the probability changes, you can buy in and out of your position. For a limited time, download the Kalshi app and use code CUP26 to get $10 when you trade 10. KALSHI, Kalshi. Trade the beautiful game. 18 plus only. Restrictions and eligibility requirements apply. Event contract trading involves risk and may not be suitable for all investors. Prices, values, and available markets may differ from those mentioned. For more information, see kalshi.com/regulatory.
Get your tickets now for the Dog Stars.
It's no surprise how fast civilization can disappear. Out there, it's kill or be killed.
Jacob Elordi.
There are people out there. They need our help.
Josh Brolin.
Shoot first and inquire afterwards.
Margaret Qualley.
Ow. Okay, tough guy.
And Guy Pearce.
Arm up!
The Dog Stars. Directed by Ridley Scott. In theaters August 28th. Get tickets now. Rated R. Under 17, not admitted without parents.
This message is brought to you by Apple Card. Shave ice by the beach. A trip to the state fair. And a throwback flick at the local drive-in. They're more than just items to check off the summer bucket list. They're also opportunities to earn 2% daily cash back when you use your Apple Card with Apple Pay. Apply for Apple Card now and use in minutes with Apple Pay. Subject to credit approval. Apple Card is issued by Goldman Sachs Bank USA, Salt Lake City branch. Terms and more at applecard.com.
Hello and welcome to How We Are the Podcast. It's Martin here, and as we build up to the season's big kickoff on Saturday against Ipswich Town, we thought we'd have a look back at some of the most memorable opening day fixtures in the history of Sunderland AFC. And of course, there have been plenty. If my calculations are correct, and I caveat that with the probably not, it's 126th opening day fixture we will play when we face Ipswich on Saturday. So there's plenty for us to pick from. I've got a couple of gentlemen who have seen more than their fair share of opening day fixtures, and I say that with all kindness meant. So first of all, we'll say good morning to Kelvin. Hello, Kelvin.
Oh, good morning. Good morning, everybody. I am so looking forward to this one.
Yeah, it should be good fun, shouldn't it? It's interesting. We'll get into it, but the opening day fixture is always a bit special, and it's usually the one part of the season where you've got complete hope that hasn't been diminished at all. And sometimes it's diminished within quarter of an hour, other times it lasts the course of the opening fixtures, isn't it?
Yeah.
Joining myself and Kelvin is Andrew Smithson. Morning, Andrew.
Morning, Martin. Morning, Kelvin. Hello, everybody.
And Andrew, as we were just saying there, the opening day, it is a bit different, isn't it? It's a bit special. You've got usually a bit of optimism from the summer. You've forgotten anything negative that came off the back of last season. Of course, we're in a good position, aren't we, where there wasn't much negative to bring into the summer. But the opening day fixture normally gives you a little special buzz. Football's back, proper football's back anyway, and you get to see the lads back in action again.
Of course, like you say, you've spent all summer convincing yourself that last season was some sort of error and that things are all going to fall back into place again, or like you say, we were enjoying watching our football the season before, and then you've got a long summer without it. And there's all those new things to look out for. There's the new kits, and there's the player turning up for the opposition who you hadn't realised had made a transfer or whatever. There's just loads happening. Your weekends are back to a normal routine. Aye, brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
It's always good fun, isn't it, Kelvin? And you've got that, say, that optimism you usually carry into to a new season. And sometimes, as we say, that optimism can be even greater at the end of 90 minutes. Sometimes it can be completely diminished after 20 minutes of seeing Kelvin Davis playing goal. But, it's interesting how much importance we actually place on the opening day fixture, isn't it? Because whether there's a correlation between the opening day fixture and then what transpires throughout the course of the season, or whether it means absolutely nothing at all. you always think we have to get off to a good start to the season, don't we?
Yeah.
And, we've probably had seasons in the past where we've got to a flying start on the opening day and had a terrible season and vice versa.
Well, do you know, you're dead right. You're dead right. And I was convinced that there was some correlation between a good start and success, a good season. So I trolled back and looked at my first 20 years, starting with 1965, 66, and there's absolutely no correlation between what, between what happens on opening day and where you land at the end of the season. So I think that's a myth. It's a bit like second season syndrome. It's
Yeah.
a bit of a myth. The stats don't back it up as I can see. I think what you do get out of, we don't have to look too far back, do we, to see what a great opening day game can do for you. It does lift your spirits, and and somehow makes you feel like, oh, this season's going to be great. I can tell. We've just put 90 minutes in and won 1-0,
Yeah.
But no correlation in the first 20 years of me walking through the door. And seeing the other thing when you do anything like that is you realise how much time you bloody wasted going to travelling to football and stuff. There's hours and hours of road travel, and bloody even going to Roker Park, if you count up the hour and a quarter it used to take us to get there, in the early days. So there's hours of time being spent going to football. Time well spent.
Time well spent. I was going to say that, Kelvin. Yeah, time absolutely well spent. And we were just talking before we came on there. Obviously, we've got Ipswich on Saturday, and it's not the first time we played Ipswich on an opening day, is it, Kelvin? I remember it was Ali McCoy's debut in the 80s that we went down to Portman Road and had a good game down there.
That was there were quite a lot of people travelled that day, and I was at that game. Unfortunately, I know you think I say this every time, but the reason why I got to go to that game was I had some work down in there. But it was I'm sure it was in North Wales or somewhere,
Just round the corner then.
I'm in North Wales on Monday. I'll just go.
Take a little detour.
But there was a lot of people travelled. It's a place I always. It's we've all got these places that we go to, and you think, God, I never see us win here. We never win here, But actually, it was a really, really good game, and Ipswich were a bloody good team at the time, a really good team to watch. They were an entertaining team to watch, but 3s each it was, a cracking game. There were a number of star performers, but McCoy, my memory says he didn't play. I think he came on as sub, is my memory. But he set one of the goals up, a lovely little cheeky back heel, and got Wall very excited that he was going to be having a good season, So yes, hours and hours of fun travelling all the way down to Ipswich.
Well, in that game, we were 3-1 up on the opening day, and a future Sunderland player scored 2 to peg us back to 3-3.
Gatesy.
Gate, yeah.
Gatesy
got Terry Butcher was in the side for Ipswich as well that day.
Yeah. And he enjoyed them goals, Gatesy. I remember we didn't get the fingers from him, but we certainly got the raised fist in the away end, the little bugger. He's a little bugger.
Ali McCoist, Nick Pickering and Ian Munro were debutants on that day as well. And Andrew, I think you've been digging through the archives and looking back at some of the outstanding or certainly memorable games that we played in opening days.
Yeah, just I didn't quite have time to go through all 125, Martin. Don't worry.
Come on, what have you been doing?
I know it's
Go on.
pathetic, isn't it? What a half-assed effort. So yeah, I picked out a couple that I thought stood out. Interestingly enough, this is the first Regis Lebris is the first manager or head coach, officially speaking, to be in charge of 3 opening day fixtures since Steve Bruce in 2011.
Ah.
And that, I mean, I don't know how you feel about that, Martin, but to me, that just showed the constant cycle we've been in and how now we're actually getting that stability that we've craved for years.
Well, it's just symptomatic of the short lifespan that managers tend to have these days, isn't it? You know, I was listening to something, a podcast yesterday, and it said that De Zerbi at Tottenham, he's either the 8th or the 12th longest serving manager in the Premier League. I can't remember which way it was, but there's been so many managerial changes, even in the last 6 months, that he's now about halfway in terms of the longest serving managers in the Premier League. And, you know, you look back on Sunderland's changes in manager, and, you know, the fact that Lebris is the first one. So Steve Bruce's 3rd season would have been, 2011, 2012? I think, if I'm correct in that.
Yeah.
So first time in 15 years we've had the same manager in charge for 3 season openers. Usually if they get one, they've been lucky over the past decade and a half, haven't they? Because we've appointed them midway through the season. They've seen that season out, start next season, and they're gone before that season ends. So it's, you know, there is a lot to be said, I think, for stability generally in football. And it's impressive that Lebris is in charge, overseeing his 3rd opening day fixture. Let's hope his season pans out a little bit better than Bruce's 3rd season pans out. That's all I can say with that. We haven't got Wigan at home in November, have we? We'll be all right.
Yeah. Come on, Martin. Don't start panicking us. But I mean, just to prove your point there, Ipswich, newly promoted, they've got a new manager. Now I know McKenna wasn't dismissed, but I don't even know the details. Do you know when I say opening day of the season's enjoyable because they'll be like, oh, I don't remember that player moving. But it's going to be the same this season for managers because I don't even know who's gone where and what have you. But yeah, Lebris has done well to make it 3 in a row. For those who can't quite remember, obviously in 2025 we beat West Ham. I think that in terms of opening days will always be well remembered. The one before that was 2-0 at Cardiff, and it was Luke O'Nien scored from a really clever set piece, and then right at the end, Jack Clark got one. I think it must have been one of his last games for Sunderland. So hopefully,
last goal, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah. So hopefully, because I mean that was the first game Lebris was in charge of for Sunderland, full stop. So there was a lot of expectation and a lot of intrigue into how he was going to do, and it was the perfect start. So yeah, we'll have a repeat, please. Back on the road, we'll have another 2-0 win, please. Going back a little bit further, 1892-93.
Just a little bit further.
Yeah. Well, the distance is probably the same as Kelvin's from North Wales to Ipswich. We won 6-0 away at Accrington. And if you're talking about, is there any correlation between a good start to the season and how the team does? We won the title, so that's a pretty good start to win 6-0 at Accrington. To be fair, I don't think Accrington were too clever back then. Our new defender from Queen's Park was making his debut for us lads, a fella called Bob Smelly, who, bless him. Bless him. I'm assuming he was a headline writer's dream. Johnny Campbell got a hat-trick for us. John Hannah, Davey Hannah, and Jamie Miller got the other goals in what were described as horrific conditions. 2 years later, 1894, we beat Derby at home 8-0.
Go
And
on,
again,
lads.
again, we went on to win the title. So a fantastic start. But do either of you know the story about this game and why Sunderland actually, or how Sunderland came about actually scoring 11 goals that afternoon? You might have heard this story before.
Oh, if I have, you're going to have to remind me and dig it out through the recesses of my mind.
Yeah. Come on, trigger us, Andrew.
The first half had to be replayed. We were 3-0 up at half
Oh,
time.
that's it. Yeah, yeah.
The referee was a Mr. Kirkham of Burslem. He'd missed his connecting train and was stuck. Yeah, he was stuck in York. By the time his telegraph arrived up at Sunderland, the players were already warming up. So, they didn't know what to do. There was a fella called Mr. Conqueror who was in the
William.
stands.
He has to be called William. He has to be.
Mr. Conqueror, who was actually from West Sussex, but he was from a town in West Sussex called Southwick.
Yeah.
So in the past, whenever I've read this game and said there was a fan from Southwick in the stands, I just thought, yeah, well, that makes sense. But no, he was on holiday and by complete chance decided to take in a first division game. He got wind that the referee wasn't there, and went and approached the hierarchy at the ground and said, "Well, I've overseen some junior games. Do you want to give me a go?" Now, I would love to have been in on that conversation because, for a start, junior games does not equate to top level games. But also, how does he prove that?
Yeah.
It's not like he can get his Wikipedia record out or anything. So the two clubs have taken him at face value. They've believed him in good faith and said, "Go on then. You can referee this game if you want." I mean, talk about a holiday bonus. So yeah, the first half played out, and seemingly everybody was happy with Mr. Conqueror. He did a decent job. Sunderland were 3-0 up. There was no reports of any complaints. But then when the original referee turned up and started making noises about, "Oh, this is improper. You shouldn't have played the 45 minutes without me." Derby, who were 3-0 down, go, "Oh yeah, see where you're coming from. Maybe we should restart the game." So there was a bit of back and forth. The referee decides, "No, we're gonna scrub out that first 45 minutes." At which point, a load of Sunderland fans are actually quite angry about this and go home. They think, "I'm not happy about this. This isn't fair." A load of them go home. They miss Sunderland scoring 3 again in the first half. And then in the second, we go and score 5 more. We win 8-0. Apparently, there was a bit of ridicule in the national press. I don't think the authorities came out of this well, because there was clearly no contingency plans in place for if a referee got delayed or there was problems. And yeah, bit of an odd one to think that
Just,
that Sunderland
just
played. What was it? What's 90 minutes plus 45 minutes?
135, I would
Right.
say.
Played 135 minutes, Kelvin.
it's the old adage, Andrew. It's a game of 3 halves, isn't it?
Well, you know what's funny? Because as soon as you mentioned the referee missing the train, I was like, that sounds very familiar. So I've just had a look. I wrote about this on the website 5 years ago, and that was my headline. It's a game of 3 halves. He was called John Conqueror, apparently, not William, which is a shame. His parents missed the trick there. But there you go.
That's disappointing.
Mm,
We had a
mm.
we had a player, lads, for us that day who got 2. He was called Tommy Hislop. He got 2 that day. The following week, he scored a hat-trick as we won 3-0. But he only ended up playing 18 times for us. And despite scoring 10 goals, he moved on. So Tommy Hislop is definitely somebody I'm going to do a bit of reading on, because I'd like to know what happened there, because on the face of it, his record was pretty decent.
Very good.
Mm.
So yeah, those gents were our biggest opening day wins by far, actually.
Yeah.
We've had a few 3-goal margins, but then we've never won once by 4 goals or 5 goals on the opening day. I know, Kelvin, you saw us win 4-1 at Millwall in 1974.
I
That
did.
must have been a decent game, was it?
It was, but it was at Millwall. By the time the 3rd goal went in, I was praying we never didn't score anymore.
Where were you working that weekend, like Kelvin? Glasgow?
I was a teenager, just coming off the back of, I think that would be 1974, was it? Just coming
Yeah.
off the back of the FA Cup. Would be a season on from the FA Cup. Well, it was a leery place to go to then. Millwall was my first trip there. I've never been back. It was bloody scary. Fan segregation in them days was a bit random. You know, it was like a bobby standing there sort of watching everything that was going on. But yeah, we played great. It was great. Great performance. Great game to look back on, but not so much fun to be at, I can tell you.
Kelvin, I think if you'd managed to get to Derby in 1951-52, I think crowds were a little bit better behaved then. This must have been a decent opening day, because Sunderland won 4-3 at Derby County with Trevor Ford scoring a last-minute winner.
Good.
We'd been 2-0 down after half an hour. When we talk about optimism and going into a new season, there's nothing quite like being behind on the opening day to just really hit you in the gut and make you think, oh no, we're not going to have another 9 months of struggle, are we? But we responded to that one pretty well. Unfortunately, also with Derby, there was a catastrophic 5-0 defeat in 1993 under Mick Butcher, Martin, which is one of those games where you left going away thinking, yeah, that
Under who?
optimism is.
Who was the
I said
manager?
Terry Butcher, wasn't it?
So I said Mick Butcher. Like,
Did I?
Unless I've just had a terrible nightmare in real life.
I could well have done, but yeah, now that would have been a nightmare. Oh dear me. Whoever was in charge.
Whoever it was.
Whoever was in charge that didn't quite get the tactics right, because we lost 5-0. I think Marco Gabbiadini scored one of the goals to rub salt in the wounds. But dearie me, that was even
Well, that
for
was
me
the
as
game,
a kid,
wasn't it?
that was
Where
a hammer blow.
Butcher had made all the pre-season signings and had the incident with a car in the roundabout. So some of them missed the game. Some of them were kind of patched up in plays, and everything. We'd actually been pretty good in pre-season, and it just all came crashing down on that first game at Derby, didn't it?
You're right. I think we'd been decent in pre-season. We'd spent a bit of money, so the optimism jumps up a couple of levels. But that was not fun.
That would be a good hybrid manager, wouldn't it? Just to pick up on a previous theme, Terry Butcher and Mick Buxton.
Kelvin, you are a cheeky little bugger, you. You're a cheeky. Oh, Kelvin. Couple more games just stood out. We've talked about when we played Ipswich previously as a season opener. down at Portman Road. We hosted them at the Stadium of Light in 2001, 2002. We won 1-0 with an early penalty from Kevin Phillips. It proved to be a bit of a six-pointer because if you remember, lads, at the end of that season, we finished 17th. They finished 18th and were one of the teams to get relegated. So it was a pretty good result for us ahead of what was a tough season. They had in their team Chris Macon, Titus Bramble and Martha Stewart, who were names we're all familiar with, whilst their manager, Kelvin, somebody you will have seen play for Sunderland. Do you remember their manager who was a former Sunderland fullback?
Was it Burley?
Aye, George.
Yeah.
George.
He
George
did quite
Burley.
well there, didn't he?
He was
did.
good.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah, he was good. Making debuts for Sunderland that day, and perhaps a hint as to why we then struggled. Do you want to have any stabs at two debutants we had that day?
Viva Las Landes.
Almighty. Can I go home? I'm at home.
Las Landes, who lasted 70 minutes before Niall Quinn came on, and the other one was Bernd Haas. Bernd Haas played the full game, so aye, interesting. And the other one, the only other pre-season game, one of the few opening season games that I don't think I'll ever forget is when we beat Wigan under Lee Johnson, and it was the first game back after COVID.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't just a summer that we'd waited to be back in grounds. It was, a year and a half roughly or something. So that was a day where I felt eternally grateful to be able to go and actually just enjoy proper football. So there you go. A few highlights.
That game as well, Andrew. I think if my memory is correct, we obviously had some crowd in for the playoff semi a few months before, but this was the first time that the ground was properly open.
Yeah.
And then you had the subplot, 'cause I think, hadn't Charlie White signed for Wigan? So you had the subplot of Charlie White coming back to make his Wigan debut against Sunderland.
You're dead right, Martin. I have a feeling that half of Wigan's team used to play for us. Maybe Max Power and what was that winger we had on loan? Jordan. Yeah.
Jordan Jones.
Yeah. So there was plenty of links that day. Probably as many links as when we played Ipswich in 2001. And was it the debuts of might have been the league debut for Dan Neil? I think.
Not according to Stacker, but I remember he played left back.
Yes.
Because we hadn't signed a left back up until that point. But Corey Evans and Callum Doyle made debuts for us on that occasion. Yeah, Max Power and Charlie White, who had, of course, been pretty pivotal players for us the season before. And I think Max Power's shot over the bar and over the stand and into the weir was pretty much the last touch of the playoff semi-final, wasn't it? That was his last touch on the Stadium Light. And then the next game he's lining up for Wigan.
That shot, I don't think it landed in the weir. I think it probably landed in something like the Tyne or the Tees. It was that... it was... Oh,
it might still be going, and it might collide with Chris Waddle's penalty in 1990 at some point in the very distant future, and the world will end when that happens. We will be back after a very short break, and after a couple of ads, we will be back looking at 3 very memorable opening day fixtures. We'll see you soon.
Before the season even kicks off, soccer fans are already making predictions. Who wins the league? Who qualifies for Europe? And who's lifting the trophy at season's end? On Kalshi, America's #1 prediction market platform, you're trading against peers in a live market, meaning there's no house. And as the probability changes, you can buy in and out of your position. For a limited time, download the Kalshi app and use code CUP26 to get $10 when you trade 10. KALSHI, Kalshi. Trade the beautiful game. 18 plus only. Restrictions and eligibility requirements apply. Event contract trading involves risk and may not be suitable for all investors. Prices, values, and available markets may differ from those mentioned. For more information, see kalshi.com/regulatory.
This message is brought to you by Apple Card. Shave ice by the beach. A trip to the state fair. and a throwback flick at the local drive-in. They're more than just items to check off the summer bucket list. They're also opportunities to earn 2% daily cash back when you use your Apple Card with Apple Pay. Apply for Apple Card now and use in minutes with Apple Pay. Subject to credit approval. Apple Card is issued by Goldman Sachs Bank USA, Salt Lake City branch. Terms and more at applecard.com.
Chronic migraine, 15 or more headache days a month, each lasting 4 hours or more, can make me feel like a spectator in my own life.
Botox, onabotulinum toxin A, prevents headaches in adults with chronic migraine. It's not for those with 14 or fewer headache days a month. It's the #1 prescribed branded chronic migraine preventive treatment.
Prescription Botox is injected by your doctor. Effects of Botox may spread hours to weeks after injection, causing serious symptoms. Alert your doctor right away, as difficulty swallowing, speaking, breathing, eye problems, or muscle weakness can be signs of a life-threatening condition. Patients with these conditions before injection are at highest risk. Side effects may include allergic reactions, neck and injection site pain, fatigue, and headache. Allergic reactions can include rash, welts, asthma symptoms, and dizziness. Don't receive Botox if there's a skin infection. Tell your doctor your medical history, muscle or nerve conditions, including ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease, myasthenia gravis, or Lambert-Eaton syndrome, and medications, including botulinum toxins, as these may increase the risk of serious side effects.
Why wait? Ask your doctor, visit BotoxChronicMigraine.com, or call 1-800-44-BOTOX to learn more.
Welcome back to How We're the Podcast, and we are doing an opening day special. We're looking back over some of the more memorable opening day fixtures that Sunderland have had. Now, Andrew, we're going to come to you first, and we're going to go back to 1963-64, aren't we?
Yes, exactly. It was the kickoff to our first promotion winning campaign, Martin. So I thought that would be a nice one to look at. And as a little treat for Kelvin, he took it the wrong way when I said this. He thought I was saying he was older than he is. I just know that Kelvin likes a lot of the names from this era. I know Kelvin wasn't going to the game by this point, but I thought, yeah, we'll have a little look at this game and give Kelvin a little walk down memory lane to some of the players. We won 2-0 away at Huddersfield Town, as I say, at the start of our first ever promotion campaign. So I think Kelvin's right. There isn't that much correlation between a good result on the opening day and the team going on. But certainly if you can start with a win, it can help get things going quickly. You're up and running from the start. We'd spent the summer trying to sign a player called Kevin Lewis, who was at Liverpool. Didn't get the deal done. We had no joy with that. So we started the season, as was more common then than it is now. We started the season with no new signings in the team. We did, though, have Brian Usher, who'd come through the youth ranks. He made his senior debut. So there was a new face, but it just wasn't somebody we'd bought. We'd brought into the club externally. Brian Usher, how about this for a debut? He was up against Ray Wilson, who 3 years later was winning the World Cup for England.
Yeah.
So that is a baptism of fire for a young inexperienced kid. In goal, we had Montgomery, and in front of him was Irwin and Ashurst. Alan Brown then had Stan Anderson, Charlie Hurley, Jimmy McNabb, and the forwards were Usher, as I say, making his debut, George Hurd, Andy Kerr, Johnny Crossan, and George Mulhall. Now, if you swap out Kerr for Sharkey and Anderson, who started the season as captain but was then moved on a few months into the season, you swap him for Harvey, Martin Harvey, that is pretty much the famous 11 that won promotion. That was a season when you didn't have a load of substitutes, you weren't rotating players and what have you. So that 11 there, a lot of much loved names in it, very, very popular team. It was our first competitive game since the end of the previous season when we blew promotion. We lost 1-0 at home to Chelsea and basically threw away our chance of going into Division 1. So there was a bit of nerves around this game. We were playing Huddersfield, who had being one of the other sides pushing to go up at the end of the previous season. You know, there was no guarantees we were going to win. There was no guarantees we were going to get over that hangover of the previous disappointment quickly. That said, in a crowd of around 20,000, Argus in the Echo reckoned about half of them had travelled from Sunderland and the surrounding areas. So, you know, that's an amazing travelling support. And the fans were certainly optimistic. It was your classic opening day. It was red hot, apparently. The pitch was in pristine condition. You know, whenever you imagine opening day, the sun's always beating down. Anderson, as I say, was the captain. He won the toss and Sunderland got an early goal. There was a throw-in that George Mulhall took. He found George Hurd on the edge of the area. He twisted and turned and played the ball through to Andy Kerr, who blasted in to give us the lead after 5 minutes. We were then in command until half-time, lads. Huddersfield, give them their dues, came out after the break and put us under a little bit of pressure, but we weathered it. And again, as the half wore on, we just took control. We had a lot of really good chances. We couldn't put them away. And then with about 5 minutes left, Usher, on his debut, he then goes on to be pivotal that season. He really takes his opportunity well. He crosses the ball in, Crossan flicks it on at the near post, and George Mulhall's there with his right foot to finish. 2-0, we're up and running, we're confident, we're top of the table in November, we're promoted by April, easy. There you go. Like that. Like that.
What a start.
Didn't break stride once, Kelvin, and yeah, a memorable season.
And great names there. There'll be, I was thinking when you were reading the team out, there'll be a host of supporters from that generation listening to this, reading the team out before you actually were getting to the names. So they used to be able to just recite that team in your sleep, probably because there wasn't your point about there not being too many comings and goings within the team once it got going, once the season got going. It was a very Reggie Labrie would have been champion with this season. It was a very small squad that Alan Brown worked with. A very good squad, though. What a start! There you go. You see, I told you before. If you win your opening game, you'll have a successful season.
All the evidence that we've had so far is contradicting your earlier statement, Kelvin, isn't it? It'll be interesting. I tell you what, I wonder when the last time was that we played an opening day fixture with no debutants. Because we could do it against Ipswich.
True.
Right.
True.
Right. Yeah.
Unless there's some sudden movement. But even then, I'd be surprised if Labris brings somebody straight into the team if they've not had time to bed in.
There's only, obviously, Thomas Munier who could come in and feasibly play a part, which I actually think he will, but feasibly we could have a lineup without any debutants, couldn't we?
Yeah, I mean,
especially after last season.
Well, we've just been talking about the virtues of consistency.
Yeah.
Haven't we?
No, I'm all for that. All for that.
It's not for the people who like new flashy things all the time, is it? But, there's a lot to be said for it. That's excellent, Andrew. And Kelvin, we're going to go into the 80s now for your pick for an opening day classic.
An opening day cracker. Now, let me put some context on this. I was about to get married, okay, to my first wife. I was about to get married. My relationship with Sunderland lasted a lot longer than our relationship. I was about to get married, and my mates, they treated me to a trip to Birmingham to see Sunderland play Aston Villa. And part of the treat was we went in a white van. So it sounds, it's a bit like flying Emirates first class, to go to a football away game. you rent a van, you hire a bunch of lads in the back of the van, and you drive for 4 hours. you know, and off we went to see Sunderland play Aston Villa. And I always remember jumping into the back of the van, and there were 2 big cardboard boxes of bacon rancheros and a couple of crates of Breaker malt liquor. Whenever we went away like that, we always had a tipple and a snack. So bacon rancheros and Breaker malt liquor got us there and back to. I never ate rancheros again after it. They were horrible. But anyway, that's part of the memory of the story. We travelled more in hope than expectation. Villa were reigning European champions. They'd won the European Cup the season before, and obviously the season before that had won the First Division. So they were a squad that they were a cracking team. I always thought they didn't have any superstars. They were just a cracking team with a good lad in every position, including a lad I always like. He did end up at the Toon for a while. Peter With was a good centre forward. He had a little bit of everything, with big, strong, mobile, bit of pace, 2-footed. So he was a threat. There was no doubt. So we travelled more in hope than expectation, especially after the season before we'd played them at Villa Park, and they'd absolutely hammered us 4-0 that season. We were never at the races. We'd finished the previous season, though. We'd finished the previous season quite well. It was Alan Durbin that was the manager. And I did feel he was just starting to get his combination of experience and youth, that blend just about right. I did feel that he wasn't far away from having a team. What's my favourite saying? We're only 2 players away from being a great team. But he debuted the previous season Colin West, Nick Pickering, and Barry Venison, and that was the youth in the team. You'd have to count Ali McCoist as part of the youth as well, which spent a bit of money on him. And he'd flattered to deceive. He'd had a couple of moments in the previous season, but he still wasn't getting the goals. And he wasn't even getting his first team place. He was spending a bit of time on the bench. But he brought him in, he paired him up with West, Colin West up front. There was a little bit of experience there. Ian Monroe, who you mentioned before, was club captain that season. He was a good lad. I mean, he was a good player, Ian Monroe. A lot of people, his nickname was Psycho Monroe. But I think that just because it rhymed with Psycho, rhymed with Monroe, he had a rash tackle in him, but he was a hard, nuggety little fullback. But he could play with the ball, Monroe. He wasn't a bad footballing fullback for me. We had Chris Turner in goal as well, who is, you lads know, I really, really like Chris Turner as a goalkeeper. I always thought we had a chance of at least a point with him in goal. However, in the close season, we'd lost Jeff Clark. Newcastle had come in and nipped him away from where, and that was a big miss in terms of experience. And during the previous season, as the season had moved onward, Durban had sort of moved a number of experienced players on, like Ian Boyer, Tom Ritchie, Steve Whitworth, Kevin Arnott had played his last game in that season. Barry Siddle and Alan Brown had moved on. Now, Brownie, I thought Brownie was good for a goal as well. And he was rapid. Show him a bit of grass and he'd be off. He was a really, really quick player, him. But Brownie had gone to Shrewsbury in part exchange for a player called Ian Atkins, who none of us knew. I would say a lot of us knew not much about him. But looking back on it, that lad, he came as a versatile kind of player who could play in defence or midfield. And he'd scored 19 goals for Shrewsbury the season before. But because Clark had gone and Hindmarsh was suspended, Rob Hindmarsh was suspended for this game, Atkins would play centre half. So he was a debutant and would get a look at him for that game. But he was our only. So Durban had gotten rid of quite a lot of experience. Ian Atkins at that point in the season was our only signing coming into the new season. We still had Gary Rowell, Gordon Chisholm, Stan Cummins, and as I say, Rob Hindmarsh, who was suspended. We also had Sean Elliott, and there was a bit of bad crack around Sean Elliott. I felt sorry for him coming into that game because he never. I always felt like Alan Durban didn't fancy him, and Elliott he was coming to be he was either out of contract or coming to be out of contract, and I think Durban wanted to sell him to get some money in for him to buy his own players, and Villa were rumoured to want him. But Tony Barton, the Villa manager, he'd gone public just before the game, and it was like he'd done it deliberately to unsettle the camp, saying that, yes, they were very interested in signing Sean Elliott, but nowhere would they be paying the price that Alan Durban said he wanted. So Durban had quoted 650,000 for Sean Elliott, and Tony Barton was talking about 200,000. So all that was going on. Literally on the morning of the game, we were reading about this stuff going to the game, and I felt sorry for Sean Elliott. He was one of my unsung heroes as a Sunderland player. You put that lad on the pitch and play against him, you're gonna have a game, So I felt a bit sorry for him, but he played a really great game anyway. We're getting to the ground, and remember these are European champions, but it was a sign of the times, there was only about 22 and a half people actually in that game. And I bet you there'd be over 2,000 Sunderland fans at the game, People probably teased into coming and see how we do against the European champions. Our team that day, Turner, Venison, Atkins, Elliott and Munro in defence. We had Stan Cummins, Mick Buckley, Gordon Chisholm and Nick Pickering in midfield, and we had Colin West and Ali McCoist up front with Gary Rowell was sub. Villa, they had some names people would remember and recall. Jimmy Rimmer in goal, Kenny Swain, Alan Evans, Ken McNaughton, Gary Williams in defence. I'm going to come back to this lad. Des Bremner, Gordon Cowans, Dennis Mortimer in midfield, and Peter Withen, Tony Morley, who was a really good player. Tony Morley, quite often he played on the wing. He was a winger, but they would move him up front and play him there when it suited. They had a debutant, Mark Walters, 18 years old, played his game. Now this lad, he had a first half. You're talking about Brian Usher's game. He had a first half to die for as a debutant in this game. He was absolute mustard. So he was brilliant first half he had. And there so was a young lad called Pat Hurd. It was a good following, as I say. And when Villa came on the pitch, our lads clapped them on. European champions, you've got to acknowledge that. And the away fans give them a good clap on. It was a game of two vastly different halves. Never mind a game of 3 halves. This was a game of 2 halves, and you would hardly believe, you would think that they'd swapped strips at half time. That's how different both halves were. They literally battered us. You talk about first game. How's the season going to go? First game of the season, you're thinking, oh my God, 45 minutes have been absolutely battered. Now, I'm sure we did have a couple of bits of bobs, but, if you ask me what's your memory of that game, I would say to you, I cannot remember us getting over the halfway line after we kicked. The only time we got over the halfway line was when we kicked off, Oh man, they were just brilliant. It's Walters. There was a lad called Gordon Cowans who played for them. Now I always liked this lad, and he was a County Durham boy. Gordon Cowans. What a player he was! Constantly on the move. He always sort of reminded us of Ian Porterfield at his best. The ball always, it didn't matter where it came to him, he controlled it, he moved it on. He was bloody good player, Gordon Cowans. And so they battered us, they had the ball, they were coming down either wing, they were coming up the middle. We're absolutely battered. It was what defenders and defence that was earning the plaudits. Ian Atkins played well. Sean Elliott he showed them why they would want to buy him in that first half. Halfway through the first half, Peter With, really, really clever player. As the ball came over in the box, and because he'd made such a nuisance of himself, he pulled about 3 players towards him. And instead of, how often you see lads get into the box and a cross comes over, and they make a vain attempt to nut the ball towards the goal. Where you're waiting on this ball going towards the goal, the defenders all go across to him, and he like dinks it out of the top of them to Gordon Cowans ghosting in, and Cowans just nuts it in the back of the net. It was a brilliant. If he'd been your man, you'd have been cheering it loud and long. It was a brilliant goal. But in the away end, we're like, oh Jesus, here we go. That's going to open the floodgates. But it didn't. We did hang on, even though they had all of the play. There was a brilliant save from Chris Turner, coming towards my memory says coming towards the end of the half, where Ian Atkins, I think he made one mistake that day. He let this ball bounce over his head, and it was With again who got on the end of it and fired it across the box. And another good midfielder called Des Bremner for Villa. He was a good lad. He kind of directed it towards goal, and it looked like, from where we were standing, it looked like he was directing the ball into an empty net. You couldn't actually see where Turner was, and he appeared. He leapt and then scrambled and took the ball out from. He was completely behind the goal line when he flicked the ball away. It's a cracking save, Monty-esque, I would say that save was. Monty-esque. It was brilliant, and kept it to 1-0 going in at half time. We got a really big break though at the half time when they came out for the second half. Peter With hadn't been able to resume, and it just took all the steam out of their game. We started really well. As I say, I thought they'd swapped. Have these lads swapped strips? And we started really well, raiding down both flanks. Pickering, Cummins coming right into the game. They were a potent sort of wide pair. Them completely different in style, but Stan Cummins on his day was a handful for anybody. And Nick Pickering was a lovely, lovely footballer. He was a lovely footballer to watch in full flight. I think I've said this before. When you watched him, was he a Steve Ovett or a Seb Coe? And he was a Seb Coe. He was so smooth when he ran. But I'm telling you, he'd be passing quick defenders when he was running. He was really, really quick Pickering, and I always thought a good footballer. They used to play him at fullback. He'd been a great in today's game. He'd been a great wing back. Nick Pickering, I think, in today's game. Anyway, the game turns. We're coming into the game. We're getting excited in the away end. Thought, we're gonna do this. And on the hour, we're down the right wing. Stan Cummins, he picks the ball up. He swivels past the defender. He had a lovely jink, Stan, and he fires this lowish cross into the box, and it's heading straight towards big Colin West. Right? Now, Westy, I swear to God, he's looking at this ball coming in, and it must have been coming in at knee height for him. He's looking at the trajectory, and he's like a chopped redwood. He pitches forward like a chopped redwood to head in from close range. There wasn't a lot of mobility in the movement. He just sort of fell like his height. But he got it dead right and puts the ball in the back of the net. The net, you bugger, we cheered that in the way, and I tell you, just because there was a lot of games the previous season, and you would argue this especially when you're away from home, where you feel like you go through these periods where you dominate the game, but you don't get a goal. And it's a cliche, isn't it? When we dominated the game in the second half, but we hadn't got a goal. So you were waiting on them going up the pitch to score their second goal, but it didn't happen. We got the equaliser. 5 minutes later, Villa, they just never got going in the second half. They were looking a bit stunned. Gordon Chisholm, who'd come right into the game, he slid a lovely long pass to Ali McCoist. And Coisty, he always had a reputation that he wasn't the quickest, but he wasn't the slowest either. And he fleed down the right wing, as I remember. He sidesteps his marker. He's in on goal with Jimmy Rimmer, and he dinks the ball past him. He was very, very good at this in his career. He was really, really good one-on-one, McCoist. But Rimmer actually got a hand to it, and it comes up, and Stan Cummins is racing in, and Cummins was really good at this in the box. He's racing in, he gets a touch on it. It looks like it's going in, and a defender handled it on the line. So we're like shouting penalty, but as we're shouting penalty, McCoist had never stopped moving, and he smashed it into the roof of the net. So we weren't shouting penalty anymore. We were shouting, "Get in there, you bugger!" And hoping that the ref didn't change his mind. 2-1. They never recovered. And McCoy deserved that goal for his second half performance. He showed in the second half why they'd spent money on him. He was clever all over the park. 15 minutes from time, the other lad we're talking about, Nick Pickering, he scores, and he does it. He does his marker on the halfway line. Totally beats his marker, and show that lad grass, and boy, he couldn't half, a bit like Talby the other day in France. There, he didn't half eat the grass up. Shot forward, dinked the ball in the back of the net. Seventh heaven in the away end. We're just really, really enjoying it, enjoying the game. What opening days don't come much better than that. We're talking about the European champions here, and we travelled totally not thinking that we were going to get. If we got a draw, would have been quite happy. We serenaded the Villa fans out of the ground with a little song suggesting where it's somewhere dark that they could put their European cup. And it was a great away day. Great. And you know what makes those away days? A cracking stop off on the way home. Yeah. And where did we go? We didn't go to Burslem that you were talking about earlier, Andrew, but we did go to one of my favourite places to go, Stoke-on-Trent. And we stopped off at Stoke-on-Trent and went dancing at the place in Hanley. And it was, what a day. Beating the European champions and some Northern Soul dancing in groovy Stoke. Man, that is an opening day fixture never to be forgotten. outlets.
Was that the highlight of the month, Kelvin?
Martin,
in-
that's naughty, that.
In hindsight, Martin, it probably was, but that's a naughty little question. Yeah. No, it led into the celebrations quite well.
Very good. I did like the fact that we've renamed Nick Pickering Quick Pickering. I think that can stick. That's a very good one. And interesting with Mark Walters, there's two things that I noted about Mark Walters. First one, he obviously went up and played for Liverpool later on in his career. His middle name is Everton, which I always thought was just amusing and quite fun. But also, he's got, now, I'm sure I'm not making this up because this is a wild dream if I am. He's got a connection to our opening fixture at the Stadium of Light against Ajax. Do you know what that is?
Ooh.
No, I've got no clue.
Yeah, you've got me there. Yeah.
So, as part of the pre-match entertainment, before Status Quo landed in the helicopter, there was a chap going around the perimeter of the field, keeping the ball up. And he had some sort of he was a world ball juggling champion, or the British champion, or something like that.
Yeah.
It was Mark Walters' cousin.
Oh, right.
Okay.
Get away.
There you go.
Yeah.
Completely random and obscure little thing, which I did want to go and try to dig out the Ajax program, but I thought it might be away for too long before we come back. So I will double check that after we finish recording, but I am 99.9% certain that's true.
Was he introduced? Was he introduced as just Mark Walters, his cousin? Didn't they even get his own name on there?
I'm sure in the program it said Mark Walters' cousin.
Right.
I'm sure they did acknowledge his own name and his own his own identity as well, but that didn't stick. But the fact he was Mark Walters' cousin did. There you go.
Fantastic. You've juggled. You're good at juggling facts, Martin. Yeah.
Sometimes
Good
I fall
one.
down, other times I don't. Right, I'm going to take you back now, or take us forward, whichever way you look at it. 2007. This is when I look back on opening day fixtures. This to me has it all, because we talked at the start, didn't we, about that excitement and that optimism, that hope that you have going into a new season. And I don't reckon there's any time, apart from last season, when you're looking at us going up and the signs that we made and going into that West Ham game where you're thinking, right, this is different. This is it. I think the only other time I felt like that is when Roy Keane took us up. So for people listening who might not have really been around at the time or weren't going to games at the time, or a bit too young to kind of really pick up on the sentiment around the club at the time, Niall Quinn obviously took over a year before as chairman, and the club was in absolute doldrums. Wasn't Bob Murray had been trying to get rid of it for a year or two, hadn't put money in. We'd gone up on a shoestring. Mick McCarthy had done a wonderful job to get us up, and we'd gone down without spending any sort of money, without a fight. And I've never known the club to be as low as it was then until maybe more recent times, because the feeling around it, and even even more recently, you kind of think there was something that you had to cling on to. But in the last few years of Murray's reign, there wasn't any hope of it changing, because he hadn't found a buyer, so there wasn't even any hope to cling on to that these new people would do something different. And I think there was when we went down to League One, there was misplaced hope that something different, something better would happen. But Quinn had come in, and he was only the second chairman that I had ever had experience of. Bob Murray had just took over the club when I started going to games. So this was a completely new era for me. And obviously Murray had a long spell in charge, hadn't he? He'd had, 20 years pretty much in charge of the club. So you've got Niall Quinn riding in, charging in on his steed and buying the club and bringing all of this money in and all this optimism, as Quinn does brilliantly. Then you had Roy Keane coming in. Now, Roy Keane now, you kind of see a lighter side to him on TV, don't you? He's got a sense of humour. You can kind of see him when he's winding people up, and he's got a little twinkle in his eye. That's a very different persona to Roy Keane, the footballer. A very different persona. And Roy Keane was one of the if not the best player in the Premier League. I would heavily argue he was the best player of his generation in the Premier League, not only because of his ability, but what he inspired other people to do around him. He was the most mentally strong, excellent player that you could imagine. And he'd obviously finished at Manchester United in a bit of a kerfuffle and gone to Celtic for a little spell as a player. And we'd brought him in as a manager. He was only 35. So he was still, he was only a year older than Granit Xhaka is now. He's still a huge presence as a footballer. And obviously he was untested as a manager, but he had come into the club and he had given every single supporter belief and confidence that things were going to change. He'd given pride back into Sunderland, and there was a connection with Brian Clough, and I remember him speaking about how fondly Brian Clough spoke about Sunderland even when he was Forest manager and Keane was playing under Clough at Forest. He had this connection with him. I remember when he came in, he said, there's no pictures of all of the club's achievements over the years. We should be proud of what this club's achieved. We're Sunderland. We shouldn't be scared of anybody. We shouldn't be comparing ourselves to anybody. We're good enough to go toe-to-toe with absolutely anybody in the country. It's a proper football club. And he gave that club at the time such a renewed sense of being, a sense of self, a sense of purpose that we simply hadn't had for a number of years. Peter Reid gave us it to some extent, but that was very much based on the team on the pitch rather than everything else that goes on around the club. And I think Keane brought that back in spades. He took over. We were down in the depths of the second tier, first division, championship, whatever it was. And we won the league. And we all knew, didn't we, from the January, February, that we were going to win the league because we just had the confidence that Roy Keane had instilled in the players. He instilled into the supporters as well. We were getting last-minute goals. We just did not know when we would beat. And there was this wave of momentum that carried us up to win the championship in absolute silence. You just thought, we can't get beat. We've got him in the dugout. We can't get beat. And it was such an incredible thing. Now, you go into the summer and we spend a decent amount of money. So before the Spurs game, which is the opening day of the season, the opening fixture, a few days before, we'd broken the British transfer record for Craig Gordon, signed a goalkeeper for $9 million. This is the most expensive goalkeeper in the country ever. And he's playing for us. We've just been promoted. And, Roy Keane always spoke about it, and Brian Clough spoke about it too, about get your goalkeeper right. That's the first building block. Then you can build your defence. And so you can see what Roy Keane was doing. Get a good goalie in and build the rest of the team up. And you had just this overriding sense of confidence walking into the ground that we were here to challenge. We were here to fight. We were here to give this a bloody good go compared to the previous opening Premier League game a couple of years earlier when we came into the Charlton game where the ground was maybe 2/3 full and you're going, it's going to be a struggle, this. We knew it was going to be a struggle because we'd spent about $1 million or maybe $2 million in the summer and we hadn't been backed. McCarthy hadn't been backed. He hadn't been able to bring players in. We brought in Kieran Richardson, who had played for England that summer. Manchester United player who played for England, who wanted to come to Sunderland because of Roy Keane. We'd also controversially signed Michael Chopra. Now, we can all talk as much as we want about Chopra and the virtues of him as a person and as a player. But he caused us serious bother when he was playing for Cardiff. He was a fantastic championship striker with a real instinct for goal. Dixon Tuhu and Paul McShane were other debutants. So we lined up with Craig Gordon in goal, Dean Whitehead, Nyron Nosworthy, Paul McShane and Ross Wallace in defence. Tuhu was in midfield with Dwight York, Kieran Richardson and Carlos Edwards on the wings, and then Daryl Murphy and Anthony Stokes up front. Chopra was on the bench with Liam Miller, Danny Collins, David Connolly and Darren Ward. Now, this game, it was the early kickoff as well, so this was the first fixture of the season in the Premier League. So live on TV, everyone watching, everyone going to games watching this in pubs and in grounds, and obviously people at home watching as well. It's interesting when you look back at the Spurs team. There's some names that we all recognise, and that Pascal Chimbonda was a right back for them. Yunus Kabul was playing centre half. Steve Malbranc was in midfield. Timu Tainio was in midfield too. It made me laugh when I read his name. He's one of those players who you kind of forget about, really, because his spell at Sunderland was injury hit and he didn't play too much. But I read his name and it kind of reminded me of an online Chinese marketplace for really, really small things. Because Timu Tainio, where are you going to guess a little magnet from? I'll go to Timu Tainio. Jermaine Defoe was on the bench. Darren Bent, who just arrived from Charlton, was on the bench too. So Darren Bent actually came off the bench to make his debut for Spurs in this game. And it was quite a bit of a game of chess. I would say there wasn't actually a great deal of effort on goal for a large spell of this game, but it was very much, we don't want to make a mistake. Neither team wants to make a mistake. Tottenham had Robbie Keane and Berbatov up front. And obviously, as I mentioned, Defoe and Darren Bent on the bench. And there was loads of talk about the four strikers that Spurs had in the ranks. It was judged by many. Martin Jol was the manager. It was judged by many to be the best quartet of strikers in the Premier League for that season. And some bloody talent there, isn't there? But this game, as you remember, Craig Gordon wasn't really troubled that much. He had a little shaky incident in the first half where he came out and maybe could have conceded a goal. We could have given away a penalty, but we got away with it. Defoe comes off the bench. Darren Bent comes off the bench. Spurs are looking to get an equaliser. Bent actually came on for Tainio, who came off. So they'd gone three up front, trying to get a goal, try and push on. Michael Chopra came on for Stokes with about 20 minutes left. And in the very, very, very last minute of the game, and we're all kind of, it's bated breath sort of time, isn't it? You want to get at least a point from this opening game of the season. Spurs are trying to get the win. They went close a couple of times. Then in the very last second, we go up the field. Dean Whitehead's got the ball. He lays it in Chopra, who actually does some really good hold-up play about 40, 50 yards out. Lays it back into Whitehead. Chopra gets on his bike, as a good striker does, and gets into the box. Whitehead plays a nice ball down to Ross Wallace, who's popped up on the right wing. Wallace twists and turns as he was really, really good at doing so. Puts the ball into the box. It goes over, I think it's a two who tries to win a header. Doesn't get near it, but falls to Chopra. And he's got Chimbonda trying to close him down. Chopra one touch kills it dead, passes it into the bottom corner. Now, again, in terms of goal scoring instinct, absolutely fantastic. And I can still feel that elation when he scored that goal. I can still feel how I felt and how everybody in that ground felt. Because not only had we got that winner, and it was pretty much the last kick of the game. I think we kicked off again, but that was kind of it. The referee blew the whistle. But as a former Newcastle player, and obviously a Newcastle fan, coming to Sunderland, I think we get a bit of bad press about how people with connections to the black and white area are treated at Sunderland. You look at Soko's statue outside the ground. Former Newcastle captain, won the bloody Cup with them.
Mm-hmm.
Statue of the fella. There was such a desire for Chopra to do well and for him to play his part in that as well, which ultimately he didn't. But there was such a desire for him to do well. So for him to be the goal scorer as well in that last minute goal was the icing on the cake. I say the referee blew the whistle just after the Spurs team kicked off again. And for a few hours, we were top of the league. Well, we were the only team that had played a full game, but we were top of the league with 3 points. Our £9 million goalkeeper had kept a clean sheet. Our new £5 million striker had scored the winning goal in the last minute. And for opening days, if you're going to write it, I don't think it gets too much better than that.
There's nothing better than a last-minute goal as well to send you home. I remember it well, Martin. I remember it well. Brilliant. And his instinct, you're right. What a he just was a predator, wasn't he? In and around the box. A player who should have done a lot more. And this thing that Keane had, you're right about his effect, not just on his players, but on the crowd. We were going into the last minutes of that game against Spurs, right? First game of the season, and I still thought we were going to score. And I'm sitting on the ground, still thinking,
absolutely,
we're going to score here. Yeah.
And you know what's interesting, right? When you look at the video of that game and other games when Keane was in charge around that time, not very many people left.
No,
because we kind of knew that chances are we're going to get a goal and win this game in the last 5 minutes. And that whole narrative, like, oh, it happens everywhere. It's always happened at Sunderland. It hasn't, and doesn't.
No, definitely
and
not.
We stayed. I would honestly say 95, 98% of people stayed in the ground when Keane was manager for the majority of the time, because we knew that there was a bloody good chance a last minute goal was coming. And also, I tell you what it was as well. You know that you'd have upset Roy Keane if you'd left. You wouldn't want to do that.
That'd be no early getting up out your seat and leaving when he was the manager. And he, of course, his previous manager, he had a reputation for Fergie time, didn't he?
That's right.
And people going on about the number of games where his team scored goals in this, in this additional time added on, so that was a fantastic thing. You're dead right. Nobody left. Nobody left. Yeah. Great
That's
stuff.
funny, isn't it?
What a game. It was a bright new dawn. I remember driving over the border thinking, wow, we're going to have a great season, bright new dawn. Yeah.
It ended up being a bit of a struggle, but it felt like that at the time.
I was going to say, talk about the struggle. When you went through that starting 11 actually isn't as strong as I would have thought it was. There's a couple of interesting picks in there.
You're absolutely spot on with it, because apart from Craig Gordon and Kieran Richardson, the other signings that we made were championship players, really. And then it was the rest of the side that had got us up. Okay. I was looking through the BBC match report and know how they have the little comments from the fans' comments of the time, sort of wrapped into the match report. The comments that they'd chosen to accompany this match report was saying just how good Paul McShane is. What a debut. What a superb player we've got there. And we laugh in hindsight because we know how it turned out. But I remember on that day, he was monumental. He was such a good player. Again, against these four strikers who Spurs had, who were being talked up in the press as being the best quartet of strikers in the Premier League. So, to give him his due, he had a good debut.
You can see why we bought him on that evidence. Certainly, you're dead right. It didn't pan out, but yeah, early signs were really promising. Maybe a bit of a Stan Varga-esque debut from Paul McShane, that one.
Put him in that
another
box.
opening day thing we could have talked about, isn't it? The Varga game.
Yeah. The Varga game. Ever to be known as the Varga game. It was a good opening day game, that. A good opening day game, that. And a good Spurs team
Very good.
that were beat. Yeah. Good stuff.
Very good. Well, hopefully, in a few years' time, we're talking about just how good the Ipswich away game that started the 2026-27 Europa League winning season. How that got everything kicked off. Who knows? We can live in hope. It's a time for hope and optimism, isn't it? So there we go. Thank you to Andrew. Thank you, Kelvin. That's been a great.
You're very welcome. Yeah, that's good stuff. Enjoyed that.
And thank you, of course, to everybody for listening. We will be back tomorrow. Myself and Gav have Phil Smith on with us. Looking forward to the new season tomorrow. So that will be on your podcast feeds when you get up. Until then.
This episode is brought to you by ChatGPT. Hey, it's Bill Simmons from the Bill Simmons Podcast. Have you guys heard about ChatGPT work? It's the new way to use ChatGPT for bigger multi-step projects. And when you need more than just answers, give ChatGPT work access to your apps and files, and it can create real work documents like spreadsheets, slides, and structured reports. Get started at chatgpt.com by selecting work mode, available on Plus and Pro plans.
Hello.
Look what TJ Maxx dragged in.
The Devil Wears Prada 2 is now streaming on Disney Plus and Hulu.
We are digital, we are downloadable, we are streamable.
The fashion event of the year is certified fresh.
Pull yourself together, we have work to do.
Critics say it's smart and witty and the perfect sequel.
That's all.
Get runway ready for The Devil Wears Prada 2 on Disney Plus and Hulu. Rated PG-13.